Hi everyone. This is just a video that will help explain the metaphor assignment, which involves creating a blog and also creating a screencast, rather like the one I'm making right now, although a different content. So I just wanted to go straight to the syllabus because I thought that would be a good way to start looking at what the assignment entails. So here at the top part of my screen, you can see the syllabus, and this is the description for this one assignment. So I'll just go and try and make it a little bigger so you can see it a little better, but you can all go look at your syllabus. So what it says is each student will develop a metaphor for the role of the educator in technology-mediated learning environments. Students will post blog entries as they develop their metaphors, and actually it says there's a minimum of 4 to 5 blog posts during the evolution. And then after those sort of process blog posts, there will be 2 final posts that complete the blog. One of those presents the metaphor. It should not be a summary of each blog post. It should be a presentation of the metaphor. During the blog posts, during the process posts, you'll be building your ideas, looking at different aspects, but it's not the complete final version. It's the evolution of your thinking. So some aspects will be elaborated on, other aspects won't be elaborated on, and it won't be the complete picture. Whereas in the end, you present your final thinking about this metaphor. So this assignment could be done where everyone just worked in their metaphor and then came into class and shared their metaphor and wrote up, a little essay explaining their metaphor of the role of the teacher, of the educator in technology-mediated learning environments. And instead, here we're involving the use of the blog to help support looking at both the processes and the products of learning and to make a more collaborative learning process. So I just wanted to also share with you, I will be posting this. It's just some details about what I'm looking for in the different parts. So there are the process blog posts, and here I wrote 4 or more, but now that I read the syllabus, it's actually 4 or more. 4 to 5 or more. So during the process of developing your ideas, blog posts are different than I expect at the end. So if we actually look at my metaphor that I developed last time I taught this class, if we go to the very, very beginning of it, so this is on that site, truthislivenottaught.wordpress.com, my first entry is sort of brainstorming about metaphors. It's not even actually about the specific metaphor because I'm just trying to get going in my thinking and I'm just kind of elaborating on it. So that was sort of an extra in a way because it was a jump start, but it didn't even begin my metaphor. And then my first real post about my metaphor was this post about fragments, role of the educator in technology-mediated environments. So then I brainstormed a little about ideas that relate to that, the differences between being the technology-mediated learning environment and these shifts to more student-centered modes of learning. And so, the less focus on the acquisition of knowledge, learning how to work on complex tasks over time, meaningful learning, using real tools, authentic learning, moral thinking, exploring the identity of the self, society. And I made connections to different pieces. I didn't identify any sources, I don't believe. I just brainstormed, but they're clearly coming from the literature that was being read in the course and in the dialogue that I've read surrounding these issues. And then I came up at the end with Save the Cheerleader, Save the World, which is from a show that I used to really like, Heroes. And I linked that to Egan's argument about imaginative education. And that led me on to my next blog post where I elaborated on Save the Cheerleader, Save the World. And I started analyzing what that meant. And here again, I'm working on processing what would my metaphor need to include, what does it need to describe. And finally, here in my third post, I come up with the educator as leader in a post-apocalyptic world. So this is a real metaphor. And then I start building ideas about it. And it's not fleshed out. It's just the beginning. And then I talk more about emergent leadership in a pre-apocalyptic world. I think I meant post-apocalyptic world, but maybe not. And finally, I get to this place where I finally present a final metaphor. So I've had students sometimes try to figure out their whole metaphor and then write blog posts, but that's not the point. You use the blog post to sort of pivot you through the process of writing, and then at the end you present a final metaphor. And after that, the last post is looking back at your metaphor. It's a critical analysis. This isn't a self-assessment about how well you did on the assignment. It's about how this metaphor fits and how it doesn't fit. Because metaphors are just that. They're vehicles, but they're never perfect representations of another thing, or they wouldn't be a metaphor. Lucky, get out. Get out right now. Get out. Sorry, that was my dog. But I'm not going to redo this just for that. So just to recap the whole blog, which isn't a perfect representation, this is just what I came up with as I was working on it. You write 4 or 5 or more process posts, where some of them are more like fragments, like this one where I just came up with ideas, and then others you start backing up what you say with examples and so forth and references from the course materials. And then, you start describe, you say that's 4 to 5 blog process posts. Then you have 2 final blog posts that are products, that are the final version. So one presents the final version of the metaphor, and the other one analyzes the strengths and weaknesses of that metaphor. So in my case, the educator's leader in a post-apocalyptic world, one of the weaknesses of that as a metaphor was that, at least in the way I presented it, there was no focus on expertise per se of any sort. So I think teachers should have some expertise in the disciplines and in the areas in which they teach personally. And I think it's important, you should hear me about math and how elementary school teachers often teach math, but they have very little knowledge of math in general. A whole range of the teachers who have to do that teaching a discipline that they are not very familiar with. So I personally think it's really important. It's one of my pieces of what the role of the educator is to have areas of expertise. And that's just not really in this metaphor. There's a thing about having problem-solving skills and pieces like that, but not the actual sort of domain-specific expertise that I think is important. And so the metaphor is weak in that way. The metaphor is really strong in other ways, but in that way it fails to encompass my whole conceptualization of the role of the educator in technology-mediated learning environments. So hopefully this is starting to make more sense of the assignment. It's basically just what it says in the syllabus, but I think it helps to see it explained and see the example, although this example isn't perfect. I could show you a better student example actually, but I would have to ask permission. But in general, it should be a fun process to build the blog. It should be creative and exploratory. Everything isn't finalized, and it's only at the end that you finalize it. And then you also make a screencast, 7 minutes or less, that presents that final metaphor. So I have another sheet that I'm going to be posting in our Moodle site, and it just explains a little bit about the evaluation, the core criteria being used. So, there's different evaluation criteria for the process posts and then for the final 2 posts. So in the process posts, I identify that overall, the post will ideally demonstrate a profound understanding of the role of the educator within technology-mediated learning environments, demonstrate strong creative and critical thinking, playing and exploring ideas, and also ground ideas very effectively within course readings and examples from practice. Then I added, although it's not essential, that making use of the multimedia aspects of blogging to use images and or videos or draw on popular culture to further illustrate one's points can be another really effective way to explain your meaning, but it's not essential. Some people don't really want to get too much into that aspect, and that's fine. It's fun and interesting, but you don't have to go there in this particular assignment. Then the final two blogs of the post, I'm looking basically for the final metaphor to present a profound understanding of the role of the educator within technology-mediated learning environments. That might seem obvious, but that's the core criteria. The metaphor itself should be complex and multifaceted, covering many aspects of the role, not just be all focused on one piece. Draw effectively on course readings and examples, and draw on elaborated ideas with details that support them, that back them up. And so those are the core criteria for the final two posts. And the final blog post evaluating the metaphor should similarly demonstrate a profound understanding of the role of the educator within technology-mediated learning environments. And the critique should demonstrate a strong understanding of the gaps or limitations within the metaphor, as well as the strengths of the metaphor. And for the screencast, it's basically the same criteria as for the final blog post, because it's a presentation of your metaphor. It should not go blog by post by post. It should be the final post where you present your metaphor is what you discussed during the screencast. The process isn't the focus at all of the screencast. You want to really focus in on explaining the metaphor in the way you would if you were, say, in an interview and I said, please present to me or to the class your metaphor of the role of the educator in technology-mediated environments. You can have your post open, your final post, but you're not going to be flipping around and showing us the different posts. You're going to actually be presenting your final metaphor. So the last piece I wanted to say about the assignment that's interesting is that we will be in sort of groups to give feedback. The last time I did this, you read each other's blogs, but we had such a small class, everyone just read everyone's, but we have a large class, and so we can't have such big groups. So online in our different sections, I'll create sort of a place for us to build those groups so that people know. And you can have different size groups if you want. 3 or 4 or 5 people, I think is a reasonable size of people to have in your groups. To follow each other's blogs and make comments here and there. It makes it much more fun. I know you don't all know each other, some of you do, so we'll see how it works out, and I'll help people make those groups. I don't want people adding themselves to the groups though, like way late. I'll create new groups for people who don't choose to join a group earlier on, because it just ruins it if people suddenly are reading your blog and you're like almost done and then everyone's out of kilter. So we'll sort it out, but that's also a really fun part of it. So I did find WordPress has gotten a little fancier, and it has a really nice tutorial on https://learn.wordpress.com. I'll post it in our Moodle site. And here it just has some really, just very simple explanations. How do you make it? I want you to make a blog, not a wiki, by the way. The blog is dated. And how to do these other pieces. It just gets you going, and it's really straightforward. It's a better explanation than I can make by running through it in this environment, because they have more details and they can go into details that you might need help with. Sometimes people get confused because there's a reader. Once you look at someone else's blog, you can follow their blog. It's really fun. It's the bottom little corner. You can click follow their blog, and then their posts come automatically into your reader. But many people just choose to go directly to the blogs they're reading in the class. You don't have to follow each other's blogs, but it is fun. Oh, actually, you do to comment. I think that's right. I think you do. So you'll have to follow them to comment. That might be true. Anyway, it is fun to follow them, but you don't have to use your reader to read them. And then you can make comments on each other's blogs as they're going, as people are building their metaphors through the process. It's really fun. I hope people really enjoy the assignments. I'm personally really looking forward to reading everyone's blogs. I have created a site in Moodle. It's not a site, it's a little place where people can post their links to their blogs, so that we can, I have a mistress, it's a bad word, a final list, a list where I know these are where the blogs are, where the links are, and you can post it in here just by going click edit. So when you open, you can edit and add your name, and the link. Maybe I'll just do it here so you can see, like, edit